sitting in the morning sun. I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, and then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time.
When did you serve in the military? How long did you serve? And why did you want to become in the military?
The reason I went into the Air Force back in 1970 was during the Vietnam War. There was a draft in place. You all know what the draft means? A draft is where you have to sign up for selective service when you reach a certain age.
Yes, sir.
And those, in effect at that time, numbers were drawn in the beginning of the year, and depending on what your birthday was drawn on, let you know where you were in the rotation of being selected, you know, as far as in the draft. So rather than take a chance on being drafted into the Army or during, you know, for the infantry during Vietnam, I decided after high school that I would go ahead and enlist in the Air Force. Therefore, choosing what I wanted to do instead of them choosing it for me.
So, like, from what year to what year did you serve?
I joined in December of 1970, and I retired in March of 1999.
All right. And you said you were in the Air Force?
I was in the Air Force, right? I was mostly concerned with aircraft maintenance and worked on fighter jets during Vietnam. During the earlier part of my career, we trained Vietnamese pilots on aircraft in Louisiana, where I was stationed. But I did end up going to Udon, Thailand during 1973 and 1974 during the Vietnam War. And at that time, we were mainly concerned with flying electronic sorties over North Vietnam. We were concerned with combat support as far as helping the troops and things like that were in Vietnam. We had aircraft that used to deploy Agent Orange along the borders and things like that, which we found out to be very hazardous to your health. But that's what we did. I worked on airplanes, various different airplanes, to keep them in service while I was over there.
So, where were you stationed at during the Vietnam War?
I was stationed in Udon, Thailand. In order to get there, they don't take the whole group of people at one time like they did back then. You were individually assigned to where you were going to go. You were trained in what you had to do, and so you made your way. They had a way for you to get there, but you made your way to the final destination as far as getting to Vietnam or getting to Thailand or any place around there. So when I left home in Louisiana, I had to go to California, I had to go to Hawaii, I had to go to the Philippines, to Guam, before my final destination in Richmond in Udon, Thailand. Yep.
Tell me about your experience during the Vietnam War.
Most of the earlier part of my career, like I said, in Louisiana at England Air Force Base, we would train Vietnamese pilots. They would come over here, they were officers, they would come over here, they would fly our airplanes. Our instructor pilots would teach them, train them on how to use the aircraft while they were there. And then during my time there in Udon, Thailand, I worked on maintenance, keeping the airplanes flying. We did whatever we had to do as far as servicing them. If they broke down, we had to repair them, replace parts. Anything that had to do with maintenance, we had to do that.
What were some of the hardships that you faced while serving in the Air Force?
Being away from home, being away from your loved ones. During Vietnam, during the war, when you were over there, you were separated from your family. We didn't have any type of phones or things like that. We weren't allowed to call home. We had to write letters. It took 7 days for a letter to get home from me to my wife. It took 7 days for her to get from her to me. So the hardship was being away, not knowing what was going on, not knowing the things from day to day, you know, and how she was.
All right, well, thank you for letting us interview you, and hope you have a good day.
If it's the last thing we ever do, we gotta get out of this place. Girl, there's a better life for me and you. Now, my girl, you're so young and pretty, and one thing I know is true, yeah, you'll be dead before your time is due. Know it. Watch my daddy in bed at time. Watch his hair been a turning gray. Yeah. He's been working and slaving his life away. I know he's been working so hard. I've been working too, babe. Every day, babe. We gotta get out of this place. If it's the last thing we ever do, we gotta get out of this place.
And the air is heavy and humid. Until now, the enemy has held sway here. "30 miles north of the little town of Dak To, the airborne engineers erect a crude bridge. A few miles beyond lies an American Special Forces camp. It has been under siege by the Viet Cong for nearly a week. Supplies and ammunition are badly needed, and relief troops must get through. The first of the trucks begins crossing. Near the bridge, the men of B Battery 320th Artillery prepare for another firing mission. Throughout the morning, they have rained howitzer shells upon the enemy forces attacking the camp. Now, with fresh supplies of ammunition, they're ready to begin again. Each time the shelling starts, the enemy withdraws his attacking forces to escape the punishing fires. When it is lifted, he regroups and again tries to take the camp. Despite week-long airstrikes by U.S. Air Force jets, the Viet Cong have shown no signs of withdrawing. But the artillery fire, directed by those defending the outpost, is having a telling effect. The Screaming Eagles are under fire. The enemy has come to silence the guns. Communist fire comes from everywhere. Out there, the enemy is creeping in. He will try to overrun the American positions. The waiting is agony. Then the enemy makes his move. This is it. Live or die. In the forefront, General Pearson, the boss, here in hell. From Bastogne to Vietnam, the tradition remains unbroken, magnificent. The Screaming Eagle. The battle wanes. A small part of Operation Hawthorne is over. Some of the men of the 101st will fight no more. But for this day, the bastions of freedom held. They came from the north, a full battalion. Their weapons, not ours, have been silenced. Throughout the oppressive days and nights of June 1966, Operation Hawthorne continues. In the violent conflict which rages in Kon Tum province, the Screaming Eagles repeatedly beat back prize troop units of the North Vietnamese Army. In 16 straight days of combat, the brigade envelops the 24th North Vietnamese Army Regiment, and more than 500 of the communist aggressors are killed. It is the largest single battle of the war for the men of the 101st. The bitter struggle to preserve the freedom of this little Asian nation is made more bearable as each man is enriched in spirit and strengthened in his resolve. At last, the fighting is done. Operations in Kon Tum province continue until the 21st of January, 1967. Then, after more than a year's absence from their home base at Van Rang, the brigade is ordered back for a rest. It seems a long time since the LSTs first moved the brigade up to Kin Yong as they headed for their first combat around An Khê. Now, the LSTs are taking them home. On the 26th, the last convoy rolls into camp at Van Rang. Brigadier General Willard Pearson welcomes the men home. It will be one of his last official acts as brigade commander. Two days later, General Pearson transfers command of the 1st Brigade, 101st Airborne Division, to the new brigade commander, Brigadier General S.H. Matheson. The battle-hardened troops watch with solemn pride as Lieutenant General Engler pins the Legion of Merit on the uniform of their departing commander. So the Screaming Eagles bid farewell to the commander who led them in 14 combat operations from one end of Vietnam to the other. For the Screaming Eagles, as for the rest of the United States military forces in Vietnam, the valiant effort to keep that young nation free continues. However far removed from our shores, the conflict between those who cherish human dignity and those who would snuff it out affects us all. In this belief, the gallant men of the United States Army stand steadfast, not only in Southeast Asia, but wherever they may be asked to serve in freedom's cause.